what they're doing right now is illegal. Let's get this rolling, dude. Let's just start talking about this. Yeah, we'll just get this rolling. You recording? Mm-hmm. All right, perfect. All right, welcome to another episode of TLGMMA podcast. I'm your host Tyson Lee Griffin, with your audio engineer JT, and today's guest Derrick Easterling. What's up, Derrick? How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Doing really good.
We got a lot to talk about today with Derrick. Derrick, let's go way back. Derrick's one of my first MMA fighters that I would say that I coached from the, not ground up, but I would say coached from becoming a specialist martial artist, to a true mixed martial artist. Somebody that I helped coach at PFMMA when I had the gym going before COVID, and somebody who I would, I guess, consider, one of those everyday heroes in some aspects of his life, whether he realizes it or not. So, I guess Derrick also just recently had COVID, so we'll get into that. We'll get into my thoughts and feelings around this whole situation, and maybe discuss what Derrick thinks about it as well, but we won't have to force his opinions. But let's just start real quick, Derrick. How did you end up walking into the doors of PFMMA? And while you're thinking about that, I just wanted to share that Derrick coming into PFMMA was a really important place in my life, and sort of why I consider him a hero, if you will, because at that time in my life, I was recovering from nerve damage, neck surgery, got cut from the UFC, was, leaving Las Vegas, moving back home to California, hating life, not being happy with the way things were. My manager stopped returning my calls. He owed me over $5,000. Just, the list goes on. I could just think of many, many reasons to not be happy with myself or want to keep pushing forward in life, if you will. And Derrick coming in to the gym and asking me to help him become an MMA world champion kind of woke me up and gave me some purpose in life at that moment, at that time in my life, and was something that was really important looking back now. In the moment, I didn't realize it, because I was just caught up in all my my pain and my drama. But looking back now was a super crucial place in my life, because it made me look deep within myself and figure out what it was exactly that allowed me to become so successful in mixed martial arts, and how I could transfer that over or teach Derrick or facilitate that with him and other people. So, long rant, but yeah, Derrick, how'd you end up walking into the gym?
Man, I think the first time I encountered PFMMA was on Instagram, and I was living in El Sobrani at the time, and then I just recently got my black belt, and I was at that crossroad where it's like, oh, I got the black belt, now it's like, what else do I do? And I was like, man, I really want to do MMA, but my jiu-jitsu instructor doesn't teach MMA, and I didn't know no other gym that was close around. And then PFMMA popped up in the Explore page on Instagram, and then I saw that they had a grand opening. And then I remember I dropped by there, and there was like team practice. It was like you, Fabricio, Trevor, and Lucas. And then from there, I did that first practice, and I was just like, damn, this is a dope facility with Tyson Griffin. And I was like, dude, I think I could become a good fighter or become a champion if I continue to train here. And then next thing you know, it's like I kept coming to classes, and I didn't want to go out there and be one of those guys where I was like, hey, this is what I want to do, and not be able to back it up. So I figured, like, all right, I'm going to just go to all the classes, train, work hard, and let my work speak for itself. And then when the opportunity comes of, like, to fight or if I can join the fight team, then I'm going to speak and say something. And I think that's what I asked, like, if I can hop in and join the team practices one night.
For sure, that's cool, man. It's actually really, it's interesting. couple things there. You know, you're like, I think I talked about before on one of the podcasts about soul secrets. It's kind of like you're keeping that little soul secret, that like deep thing that you're really working toward, you know, for yourself, and not really worried about sharing it with the world or telling everybody. You know, it's like, I think it's a gift and a curse, especially now with social media. You know, telling too many people your goals and dreams can not be good, because the crabs can try to bring you back down to the barrel. You know, but at the same time, trying to do everything all by yourself is, you know, it's a long, hard road. So yeah, I think it's like timing and everything is, you know, I think things work out for a reason, as we're seeing with that experience, and then, you know, like you asking, probably the right time. So yeah, I remember asking Derrick, because Derrick was I'd say the highest level athlete that I had seen and was in the group in the gym. I'd say the highest level combination of athlete and martial artist, right? Maybe a little bit too much strength, too much power, but at the same time, he had a black belt. You know, he showed commitment. You know, and that same thing with that strength and that power. He showed commitment, and that he could continue to keep getting stronger in certain areas. But then to, you know, learn how to evolve and become a real mixed martial artist, I know can be challenging coming from jiu-jitsu, because you learn to get comfortable on your back. And I remember I first had a problem getting I had a problem getting too comfortable on my back when I first started learning jiu-jitsu, because I was at first a wrestler, like I always want to dominate everybody, wrestle. And I was getting submitted left and right, and then realized that I needed to play around, learn the bottom game, and then of course I did too much bottom game stuff. I found myself like pulling guard when people would grab my leg, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, and then I had to find that balance, you know, of learning how to use jiu-jitsu but also do it from a top game sort of perspective. So
Yeah.
And then I remember when you asked me about training, fighting, and then, you know, we kind of went past him just getting into the team practices. I'd say Derrick kind of became sort of the team captain of anything, you know, because like I said, he's kind of the most committed, the most experienced, and the, you know, highest level belt sort of out of Fabricio. You know, Fabricio's English wasn't the greatest at the time, so having him lead everybody wouldn't help. But, you know, and to be honest, that's the really cool thing that I've learned from my experiences in martial arts, and especially MMA, is that, you know, MMA crosses all borders. Doesn't matter what language you speak. We all speak movement.
Definitely.
Yeah, we all speak movement, and, you know, like training with Fabricio and judo throws and wrestling or punching and boxing, whatever it is. You know, body language is the most effective form of communication. Sort of scientifically, not sort of, it's literally scientifically proven. Body language is more powerful. Tone of your voice is more powerful. The words that you say, not so powerful. And that's something that I learned coaching with Derrick, and learned what I call the ABCs of change. That's why one of the biggest gifts I've had from coaching with Derrick was learning about the ABCs of change. And it was when we were like different phases of training. I try to like focus on different things. You know, you can't change everybody all the time. You can't just mold them to this one perfect fighter, but kind of look at flaws and really focus on one flaw for a little bit. Focus on strengths, focus on one strength for a little bit, and then sort of, you know, detach from those and then go focus on some other stuff, and then come circle back, you know, like I believe I got told it's called a revolving curriculum, where you always revolve back around through the same techniques over and over. You might add little tweaks here and there to those techniques, but you got to keep revolving through that curriculum to make sure that you're touching base on all those fundamentals and those things that work and still work. And I think a lot of people get caught up in all the fancy stuff these days. And
that's what that's funny that you say that, because like that's what I'm learning now as I'm taking on this role as a coach. It's like having a curriculum, but making it a revolving curriculum where you need the basics, and
basics
like
work.
Basics freaking work. They feel monotonous, but fucking they win fights.
Yep. I remember with Jaime, me and Jaime were talking and like trying to get him to focus on the basics, and like I guess we're going away from the ABCs of change, but we'll get back to that in a second. But I remember with Jaime, trying to convince him that winning is boring. Winning is monotonous. Like 100% honest opinion and honest truth. That's probably why I lost as many fights as I did. because I was not focused on just winning. I was literally out there having fun. And that's how I ended up having so many exciting fights, is because I was out there having fun. But then I started realizing that these fun fights were really close, and that's when I really tried to focus on winning and learning about, man, winning's fucking boring. Like, it's just, you got to be so disciplined, right? But again, it's monotonous. It's boring, but it works. All right, if you commit to the fundamentals, you stay disciplined, it works. And going back to the ABCs of change I learned with Derrick, I remember the exact situation because it was basics and it works. Talking about people getting comfortable resting on their back, I believe it was sort of a jiu-jitsu mentality trying to break. And Derrick was resting his back on the cage or the fence a lot of times. And it was something that he was complaining about. Like, literally asking me to help him with. Like, hey, yeah, I noticed I'm just resting. I'm like, I catch myself sort of resting on the wall. I don't want to be there, but then I'm still like resting on the wall. So I'm like, okay, I'll be a good coach. Whenever he's on the wall, I'm gonna yell at him, right? So every time I see his back on the wall, I'm like, hey, Derrick, quit fucking yelling, rest on the wall. And I'm just yelling at him. And of course, yelling at him does not help him. It actually makes him shut down even more. And so holistically, you got to learn each athlete, each individual needs to be coached a certain way. And it kind of reminded me of my younger brother because he doesn't do well. And I honestly don't really do that well. No one really does that well. Getting yelled at, right? Getting yelled at and told exactly what the fuck they need to do. Especially when they already know they need to do it, right? It's like, no, I don't need you to remind me what I already know. I need you to tell me how to do it, right? So after a few weeks of yelling at him to move off the wall, quit resting on the wall, just yelling things he already knew and him yelling back, there was one day where Mo was there. Mo, a sports psychologist that I met down at AKA. She was there watching us train, and situation happened again. I start yelling at Derrick to get off the wall and move. He literally yells back. I look at her, and I'm just like, what do I do? I'm like, he asked me to help him with this. Like, he literally asked me, like, do I just not help him anymore? Like, and then, like, right then, she looked at me and she goes, Tyson, they're children. Yeah, she goes, ABCs. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, okay, now she got my attention, right? ABCs, huh? Children. This makes sense. Awareness, behavior, cognition. That's how it works, right? So she explained to me this process of awareness, behavior, cognition. I think it's the similar science used in cognitive behavioral therapy. Long story short, this is how our brain works. We are creatures of conditioning. And whether we like it or not, we get conditioned by our awareness, our behavior, which leads to cognition, right? So in this context, how I talked with her, and then I later talked with you, and came up with the strategy that eventually ended up working, was that I explained to her, like, hey, he wants my help with this. And then she explained to me the ABCs. Look, awareness. What are you aware of that you want to change, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, we're aware of the fact that Derrick wanted to change him resting on the wall. Okay, we're aware of what we want to change. Now, what behavior are we going to use to facilitate that, right? What behavior do we need to use? So me yelling, stop resting on the wall, that's not a behavior. Like, stop doing something. Like, the brain doesn't hear stop. It just hears what it's doing. So I'm just basically saying resting on the wall. Resting on the wall, right? So his brain's just becoming aware of resting on the wall. It's not becoming aware of what he really wants. And so later...
Is it the brain or the body?
It's everything.
I just felt like,
it's everything.
Those times
Like,
fuck, I can't fucking move.
Yeah, because the brain, call it the brain, the head, the mind. You have the heart, the soul, the spirit. Then you have your gut. Your gut, your belly, your intuition, if you will. That's that deeper, that like just, oh man, that gut instinct with something wrong. That's that deeper stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times our brain can get in the way of our heart and our gut intuition. Our gut and gut intuition is what's really important to be able to be attached to. Anyway, going back, I asked you later after training, like, hey man, what can I tell you that would get you to move, right? So what I was doing there was like trying to figure out not what I think that Derrick needs to hear, but what what words are going to create the behavior that we want, right? The behavior that we wanted was for him to move off the wall, right? So I'm like, hey, Derrick, what can I tell you in those moments that will get you to move off the wall and like do the techniques that we've trained over and over and over? Because yelling the techniques over and over, it actually shuts people down. They go into that thinking stuff. They don't get to react and flow, right? So, and then you were like, just tell me to move.
So simple.
Yeah, you're like, move. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's simple. Cool. And that's really what it comes down to, you know, when it comes to like, again, the behavior is move. It's true, right? That's what I want him to do. It doesn't matter where he moves. No, just move. Move off the wall, circle your opponent. Fucking, you know, there's a lot of options. So, next training session where that came around, same thing came up, and I did. I just said, move. And I didn't like freak out and yell it. Actually, I might have started raising my voice so he could hear me. But I remember I like just like energy wise, I wasn't like frustrated or yelling anymore. You know, I'm like, I'm just gonna share what he wants to hear. Now move. Eventually he moved. Perfect. Keep saying it. Move. we worked through that, and then we could move on and work on other things, other, you know, flaws or techniques or whatever we needed to work on. But a lot of people, they get frustrated and they can't change something. They a lot of times just switch focus completely and go, oh, we'll do something different then. Well, if you can't do that, we'll just have to figure something else out. It's like, no. You have to be able to figure out the fundamentals. If you can't figure out the fundamentals, you're not going to be able to figure out the fancy other stuff. Like, and that's just the truth when it comes down to martial arts. It comes down to life. It comes down to anything. So that was one of the biggest lessons I took away from coaching Derrick was the ABCs. And then also the most awesome quote that I like to use I learned from Derrick was during his roughest weight cutting session. Now, do you remember when you said that you wanted to be world champion and I told you I was going to hold you to a different standard than everybody else in the gym?
Yeah.
How'd that make you feel?
Fucking, like there was a weight on my shoulders. I felt pressure. And I was like, all right, then like there's is work that needs to be done and stuff.
Yeah. And the reason that I told him that is because it's the truth. You know, I've gotten pretty good at reading people's body language. I can tell who's there for fun, who's there for friends, and who's there on a bigger mission. And Derrick was somebody who's there on a bigger mission. And maybe he can share his bigger mission. We can get into that, but you know, when he expressed that he wanted to become an MMA world champion, I knew that he was just scratching the surface.
Oh man!
With what he was doing currently.
Yeah.
And that he had, what I've learned now, it's called neural drive. You have to go deeper into that gut, that intuition stuff that I'm talking about. Not the head, not even the heart. It's something else that's just deep in there. When it comes to really becoming an MMA world champion. Because there are people out there that are not comfortable Americans living in a heated house that you're going to be competing against. There's people that literally do not care anything about you and literally want to like rip you apart with your bare hands. And I know now it's a really pretty, or not pretty, but it's more of a fluffy MMA scene that I've seen going on with the MMA market these days. But when I first started watching MMA, the tapes that I was watching were Vale Tudo in Brazil, which means, I think direct translation, it's wrestling everything, right? So Vale Tudo is like wrestling everything, but it really means anything goes. And the Vale Tudo side was another side in Brazil when it come down to martial arts and combat sports. One side is Vale Tudo, anything goes, where, you know, Speedos. Then you had this other side, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, organized in the gi. And these are like two big sort of like clashing cultures, if you will, when it comes to combat sports in Brazil that I learned. And so for me, coming from wrestling, it's a little bit more Vale Tudo style where anything goes, man. Show up. You know, we'll give you some hand-me-down shoes. You need some clothes, we'll fucking hook you up. Like, nobody's perfect, man. We get the job done. You know, that's what wrestling's about. Just keep growing, keep learning. But anyway, one of the coaches that I had that taught me really about this deeper just toughness was Dmitry Ushkinov, my kickboxing coach. And this man was from literally the coldest place on this earth that we know of, called Yakutsk. And Yakutsk is in Siberia, above Russia. And the coldest temperature on the earth, I believe, in record is either in Yakutsk or right next to Yakutsk. I can't remember. But it's like minus 50 in the winters.
That's fucking cold.
Right? That is fucking cold. Yeah, like I literally keep Yakutsk on my weather, like on my weather app thing, just for whenever I'm feeling sorry for myself and I think it's cold here in California, I'll just slide to Yakutsk and just look at the minus whatever it is, and I'm like, oh yeah, time to stop complaining, right? Now Dimitri lives in Canada somewhere now, so it's like minus 20 or minus 30 in the winter, and he's like, oh brother, it's beautiful, it's nice and warm, you know, like. So he said every year he would leave Siberia because it was so cold in the winters, and he would go train in Thailand. This is one of the toughest guys I ever met. Like I said, I remember we were working construction, and there was this dog around the yard, and he goes, we were all kind of like, there was a Doberman, and sometimes it was a big backyard, and so there's plenty of space for us to be there and the Doberman to be there, but sometimes Doberman would be like up on the deck where it was locked in, like next to the house, and then sometimes Doberman would be just like walking around the yard, and like it kind of growled at us a couple of times, so we knew just to leave it alone, like just don't touch it, I knew a little bit about dogs, you know, like don't touch it, don't pet it, don't look at it, just don't challenge it. And I remember one time Dimitri was there, and like somebody said something about the dog. Hey, watch out, man! Don't look at the dog, whatever. And he, without even like showing any emotion, he goes, "Kick him in the ribs, kill him, no problem." And I was just like, I was like waiting for him to laugh, you know, thinking that he was gonna laugh, but no, he wasn't laughing. He was serious. And, you know, coming from America, we judge and think all kinds of things, but when I started knowing what I know now about Yakutsk and that culture, there's tons of wild dogs. There's tons of wild wolves. They actually, even recently, wolves were attacking children and eating children. Damn. So every year, every winter up in Yakutsk, they actually have to kill off a bunch of wild dogs and kill off wolves. And that's the nature of their culture, right? Just like in the South with dog fighting and all the craziness. I'm ranting, but I remember like, with Michael Vick back in the day, I was living in Vegas with around Forrest Griffin. He's from the South. He's just like, that's normal. Dog fighting is normal in the South. What? There's just so many dogs there. That's just, you know, and it's just like here, earthquakes. It's normal, right? People from the South like, earthquakes, normal? What the ground's gonna shake and open up? Like, they're used to dog fighting and tornadoes. We're used to earthquakes and, you know, other things, right?
In good weather. Yeah.
So the reality is, through my experiences, I just learned that, man, becoming an MMA world champion and tough fighter, it's not an easy task. You know, this kid's gonna have a long road ahead of him, and I think all the things that I showed you and done with you. The one thing I remember straight from Dimitri is I made you leg spar with me after training every once in a while to feel what it really felt like to clack shins, especially coming from jiu-jitsu. I knew you needed to feel a different sense of what.
The bone.
I don't even know. Yeah, like, you know, you gotta learn. It's nerve pain, to be honest. It's like there's a lot of nerves in your shins, the perennial nerve branch that runs down there. It affects your balance and all this stuff. So there's a lot of pain and a lot of pressure that you've got to get used to dealing with and not reacting to. Kind of like you know, you have siblings and stuff, so you know how it is. You gotta like put on that poker face. You can't show a reaction with your siblings when they're messing with you. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's a combination of learning how to deal with that toughness, but also not show it when it does bother you. But the deeper lesson I remember you taught me was all this toughness that I pushed onto you. You know, that I learned from people like Dimitri, running hills, training hard, cutting weight. I remember in the Philippines making weight for your fight out there. You were just drained, you were dead, and you looked at me, and like there were times you looked at me like hoping that I was gonna basically like help you quit. Like you give me the puppy dog eyes like Fabricio gave me before, and I don't give in to puppy dog eyes. And I remember Trevor was there, he gave in to puppy dog eyes, but you know, it was just me and you in the Philippines. There was no one else to give puppy dog eyes to. except for the hotel clerks that kept coming in like, we're fucking cutting away in their steam room. We're like, what's going on? I'm like, hey, just bring me more towels. This guy's over here like laid out, just covered in towels. They think he's dying. Like, hey, is he okay? Yeah, he's fine. Don't worry. We're fighting at URCC. Already at the Coliseum. Like, okay. Like, they knew it, so it was all good, right? But then he looks at me, and no more puppy dog eyes. I think it was a huge moment of growth for him. He just looks at me and goes, hey, the dream is free. Hustle sold separately. And he realized it. It's true, you know. Dreaming is free. The hustle is sold separately. It's a whole nother thing. And, you know, I think it was what you already knew, though. Like when you first said you came in, you had your dream of fighting and all this stuff, but you were like, let me keep that down inside. Let me focus on my hustle. And if it comes, right? And so I think, you know, it's something you already knew. Maybe you lost it in a little bit. And I think that's what I love about cutting weight before fighting. I think cutting weight sucks. It's miserable. A lot of it can be too much, too intense, can be done wrong, can be unhealthy. But a lot of it can be like a spiritual experience. It can be awakening, you know. Oh, yeah. It can tap you into a sense and a feeling that you didn't even know that you had, a sense and awareness that you didn't know you had, which can be good. It can also be bad. But I think in that moment, it just taught you that dream is free and the hustle sold separately. You really got to move your feet. Just like, you know, when it comes down to like religion and Christian stuff, you know, praying, or I think it's Quaker really, but praying is one thing, but you got to move your feet. That's another thing, you know. You got to pray for the strength to accomplish things. Don't just pray for
and hope.
Blessed. Yeah, don't just pray and hope. Exactly. Don't just pray and hope. But even if you do hope, move your feet with hope. Move your feet with faith. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. That's where you create trust. When you move your feet with hope and faith, and things work out, it creates trust not only within yourself but within the hope and then within the faith as well. And that's where people have to learn to also find that trust and hope and that faith within themselves, more so than within these religions. Because unfortunately, a lot of religions actually detach you from these sort of enlightening experiences like cutting weight, and that's a whole other topic in itself. But
I think too, like like the religions, because I went on like a spiritual religion journey.
Me too.
After fighting.
We're all on one. Continue on.
Yeah, and then like I realized like religion from where I'm at now spiritually, like I think being religion and being part of like the church and stuff, it doesn't really teach you how to think on your own. You're and right. Take action on your own.
This is very true.
You know,
I heard actually that
I'm probably gonna ruffle a lot of feathers, but
that's okay. You have to ruffle feathers.
Not true.
If we don't, hey, listen. You know, if we're gonna go by the different religions in the books, you know, the one in the Christian religion is Jesus. Did he ruffle a lot of feathers?
Yeah.
Okay. Amen. Right? You know what I'm saying? I grew up in church. I grew up in Black Folks Christian Church right down around the corner in Richmond. You know, I know all about religion. No, I shouldn't say all about, but I have a personal experience and some organized experiences with Quaker religion, Christian religion. I've sat in some Catholic situations with my friend growing up, and that shit just seems so weird to me. But let's go back to what you're talking about. And what I heard is that organized religions are actually designed to prevent individuals from having true spiritual enlightening experiences. They're to get you to fall in line with what they've got going on. And the old school mystics, the old school seers and the sages. So what I know, again, this is like, I'd say hours and hours and hours and years and years of listening to podcasts. Everybody from Jordan Peterson, Paul Chek, all kinds of things. Talking with my family, friends. It's not just random opinions that I have about religion. It's something that I've personally had a relationship with God and will continue to have a relationship with what I believe God is for the rest of my life. And I think that personally, we are all at church, but I've had to create a new acronym for church and a new acronym for God. I believe we're all at church, which is children healing under rare circumstances holistically.
Damn, that's church.
Yes, I think we're all at church right now, whether we like it or not. And people love to divide themselves into different churches, but we're all at church on this, you know, Mother Earth, if you will. So we're all at church. That's my opinion, but we can break it up into different aspects, different religions, and different conversations.
Yeah.
Just so we can build understanding and awareness. But most of that is meant to lead to a greater expansion of that understanding and awareness, and not to sort of funnel us down into one narrow aspect. Because I believe the true definition of religio or religion is to bring together and not to divide and separate. So yeah, I think you're experiencing the truth. And there's a saying, I'm not exactly sure from who, but no man can truly become close to God until he becomes a heretic, which means sort of goes against or away from the religion, right? And I dare say that
we were just talking about that.
Some religions have a process of going out of the church and going on a journey. I think it's like the more formal Christians. Who am I thinking of? And the Hebrew religions, things like that. They go on their
like a vision quest.
Somewhat like a vision quest, but they go on like a pilgrimage, if you will. Like Mormon religion, that's what I'm thinking of. I think the Mormon religion, they go on like a pilgrimage, if you will. They have to like go live in a neighborhood and like try to be positive change and all this stuff. My younger brother's friend actually, went and did that like after his time at the church or whatever. So, but yeah, I think we all have to have our own sort of experiences that allow us to feel what God is. And so for me, the most powerful thing that I learned about religion from all my experiences that I believe to be true, that I learned from the Quaker religion, is that the light of God is in all of us, and that the old school Quaker, there's no real one like pastor or priest or one person preaching. When they had meeting, I believe they call it circle of friends. Everyone's just friends. Everyone is part of the Quaker religion. Everyone's friends. And you meet, you have the circle of friends, and everyone's together and holds hands and has quiet time. And I feel like I remember these moments for whatever reason, because there was no mandatory thing, but it was like everyone just held hands and was quiet, closed their eyes usually. Kids, we open our eyes, we're looking around, doing things. But then, it doesn't work. Like you try to like look at the adults, get them to open their eyes, whatever, but it doesn't work, right? Everyone's just doing their thing, and then eventually you sit there and maybe you close your eyes, maybe you don't. And sometimes people share, sometimes people don't. And that came over from my grandma, and then sometimes during family dinners we'd have, prayer. And because my mom went to church, Christian church, sometimes she would like to actually say a prayer. And sometimes, my grandma, we would just have silence, right? So it would be a moment of silence. That was the prayer where we'd all just hold hands, be quiet, and then, we would eat.
It's like embracing each other?
Yep. Connection. So it's connection. The circle means connection.
I see.
The circle creates connection. That's something I've always used coaching too. I like people circling up. I don't like this one line and you in front of me and like, no man, we're all in a circle. I might be leading, somebody else might be leading. We're all different parts of the circle. Like that's just something that I kind of feel strongly about. And recently learned that the circle is about connection and that. So yeah, let's take a step back, because you just mentioned after fighting and having a religious journey. So what caused you, triggered you, or led you to going away from fighting? For me, it was my nerve damage and injuries and business and things just not working out that led me away from fighting. What was it exactly that led you away from fighting? Because if I'm correct, your last fight was a win, and you were the URCC champion when you decided to stop competing in MMA.
Yeah. It was, I shit you not, it was 2 days before the fight, and I was in the hotel room at the Winford, and I was laying in the bed, and I was just like, usually like when it's 2 days before the fight, you're pretty excited, you can't wait to fight, and then something hit me where not
me, bro. Just being honest. Don't put that energy on me. I feel like 2 days before the fight means I gotta weigh in, bro. I hate that shit.
At least you get like, all right, cool. Like,
I know what you mean.
It's 2 days. I could fucking finally.
You can see the vision. Work. Yeah, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
And then, but dude, I was there 2 days 2 days before the fight, I'm laying in the bed, and then I'm like, damn, fucking, I don't want to do this. Like the fire inside of me was like
wasn't there
no more. Like, there's nothing to get me up to like want to do it, like that excitement that.
You mean that anger that I told you about that was gonna burn out?
Yeah. So then, so yeah, we'll put a pin on that because
we'll go back to that.
You called it when we were backpacking in Yosemite. And you was like, I know why you retired, because you were fighting so much out of anger. And I was like, and then I remember I just
walked away. Right? Like, body language. I was
like, dude, how the fuck? I was like, dude, he hasn't coached me in a year or so, and how do you fucking still knows my fucking mind? Like,
no, it wasn't that I know your mind. It's that
you called it out.
No, like, so there's times when I coach sometimes where I'll be coaching a group of people, and I'll say something out loud that is specifically for one person, but I won't address the one person because I don't want to put them on blast. I don't want to make them uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I don't want to shut them down in part of the group. But it's at the same time, I feel it's an important message to get across, right?
Yeah.
And so I recognize this at AKA. I recognize this with you guys too. Is everybody wanting to listen to this fucking gangster rap music to train? And like, I'm be honest, based on my life and my experiences, I had enough anger inside of me. The music just made it more like, angry. It didn't help me. Right? Yeah. It didn't trigger my flow states. And I learned that I could go darker places than anybody. I learned that, at one point in my life, I kind of meditated on it and realized that, man, I do have the capability of, like, if push comes to shove and it's my life or somebody else's, I'm going to live 100%. And I meditated on that because my dad was in prison and I had learned about, what happens in prison. I learned that my dad had spent like 3 months in the hole, and, so, good or bad, I just started recognizing, man, do I have that stuff in me? Like, what would I do if this, that, and the other thing happened? Thankfully sports kept me in line, and then people go out to party in high school and you hear the stories coming back. Oh man, there was some shit happening. So someone pulled a knife and this and that, and I'm like, shit, if someone pulled a knife on me, I'm, the where my mind goes, I'm just like, I'm not a victim. That's just not, that's just not who I'm going to be or whatever. So I learned that people being angry, like getting emotional, could be taken advantage. It like burns out. You get it. It can work here and there. Like, oh, that motherfucker did this to me, kicked me in my nut. Yeah, make me mad or whatever, right? And I actually had a moment in my fight with Sean Shirk that I got pissed off. I got mad and just fucking like pulled my own sort of roid rage moment. And then I got tired. I burnt out, right? Now, I think part of the reason I did that in that fight was anger, frustration, and a little bit from pain. I went into that fight injured. My shoulder was fucked up. I couldn't lift my arm a few days before the fight. I barely could punch. I couldn't grapple. Like, the only reason I took the fight and kept going because I knew that I'd never get another chance to fight Sean Shirk. And at that moment, he was sort of like my, the pinnacle of like competition. I wanted to test myself, right? And so going back, yeah, I could see that in you. And during one training session, I was trying to play funk music and like happier music, and you guys weren't about that life. And so I'm like, I had to yell, I had to call it out. I'm like, I gotta call a spade a spade. So I'm like, why you guys gotta listen to all this gangster ass music? Like, you guys want all this angry ass music? You think it's gonna like make you tougher or something? Like you think it's gonna help you be angry? Like, if you don't have it in you, you're not gonna have it. You don't get any music when you fucking fight. Like, there's no music playing when you fight. Yeah, you walk out with music. That's it. Like, you gotta be your own fucking hype man inside. Like, type of a thing. So and the truth is, I've just learned that, and Hicks and Gracie even talks about it in his documentary or whatever. You gotta play to learn. You gotta have fun. You learn more when you're having fun. You allow yourself to make mistakes more when you're having fun, and when you make mistakes, you can learn a little bit, right? Versus just trying to be boring and be the fighter and winning all the time. Now, if Derrick and everybody was angrily fighting and being super disciplined and just kicking each other's ass with fundamentals, I might have took a step back and been like, hey, these guys are right. Anger works. They're using anger in the right way. They're controlling it. They're organizing it. But no, Derrick wasn't organizing and controlling it. There were times when, he didn't do it in training because he didn't get that angry, but he'd hit people out of anger, and I could just see it, and like the one person that he wouldn't hit out of anger, I think, was me. Why wouldn't you hit me out of anger, Derrick? Like, I had to we'll get into it, but I basically had to cuss him out just to get him hit me hard one day. But I noticed he was hitting people out of anger, right? Or whatever. And so trying to nip that in the butt, talking about the music one day, it didn't work. And then in his fight, he literally was on top of a guy inside the guard, rears back to hit the guy so fucking hard, and because he's winding up with so much anger, so much aggression, it's coming from left field. The guy sees it coming, just ducks out of the way. And Derrick punched the mat so fucking hard.
My hand
his hand's probably still sore from it, or wrist is. And I just remember thinking oh, I hope he didn't break his wrist, right? Fight goes the way it goes, and he got stubborn and was trying to go for arm bar. I think I just coached him, hey man, let's go for the submissions. We know that work. So again, I didn't tell him what to do. I'm like, let's go for the submissions. We know that work, right? The guy had big, strong biceps, so he was straight curling Derrick's little ass. Derrick's ego probably didn't like that. Kept trying to arm bar. I'm like, no, I'm gonna get that arm bar. Then I'm like, hey, go for the submissions that work. Arm triangle, fight over, done. Then later, I'm like, hey man, how's that hand feeling? He's like, oh, it's fine, man. Shit, fine, man. Then later, some of his wrist was bothering him. I noticed. I'm like, hey man, that's when you remember you punched, you missed. So yeah, I could just see it in you, and I could feel it in my other training partners. You know what I'm saying? I could feel it in my brother, growing up, dealing with fighting with my family members. I can just feel the anger. And I think that's because I'm the middle. When you're the middle, you become what they call the scapegoat sometimes. So I've dealt with everybody's anger. I used to break up my best friend and his fights with him and his sister. You know what I mean? So it's just what I know. It's just what I know. So yeah, I've just seen it. I know it. And yeah, I just feel like that's where MMA can be a form of therapy, right?
It definitely served. It served like that for my life.
Yeah, so it can help you get the anger out, right? But then I dare say, if you go away from it completely, is that helping you?
From MMA?
Yeah.
No, then it drives me insane.
Right? Because isn't that what helped you?
Yeah.
At one point it helped you, right? At one point it's helping us with that anger, right? Yeah. And then at some point it burns out, and we got to find a new purpose. So we have to figure out our why. That's the most important thing with anything in life, with your goals, your dreams. What I've learned from holistic studies and coaching from the Czech Institute, and what I learned from myself personally throughout my entire athletic career. You have to know your motivations and your reasons on why you're doing anything. If you don't know it, you're not going to really be motivated in those hard times. Just to be honest, 100%. So for me in my life, I know I was trying to change my story and become a happy, healthy person and not be this asthmatic fat kid that, grew up this one way or another. And I did grow up that way, and you can't run away from it, even though I tried to. But that trying to run away from it is what allowed me to become who I became. And then looking back, reflecting and acknowledging it, accepting it, where I came from, that's what allowed me to help other people, right? If I wouldn't have acknowledged all the pain and turmoil and I've been through, and how I used to use anger to motivate me in sports, because I use anger for sports. When you're running, anger helps, but when you're fighting, anger doesn't actually help. That's the trick, right? I guess anger doesn't help when you're running either, but I guess fighting is the place that I finally learned that anger doesn't help me at all. So Paul Chek likes to say that anger can be used for change, so that might be a positive place to use anger. So as long as using the energy and is a motivation to change for good, anger can be used in a positive direction. Making sure it's not used for bad and taking other people down your path, that's super important. I think that's what happens in MMA, unfortunately. People are... This is what I see. I feel like I'm ranting a little bit. But this picture that I see right now in the world with MMA, jiu-jitsu being so popular, everyone's repressing and denying their anger, right? Whether they're angry about the stuff going on in the world, their job, just their relationships, whatever. And then they go to do martial arts, and then they pretend like they're fine. And I'm fine, yeah. Hey, everybody, happy jiu-jitsu community, right? And everybody goes, and then like, oh, time to train. Everybody just, the alter ego comes out. If I ever was training, rah, 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 just trying to choke each other, fucking break each other's arms and shit. And then, like sometimes I'll ask people, hey man, like, how you doing? Or like, whatever, like try to get a little deeper in it. No, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good, happy, yeah. Great training, People don't realize it, but maybe they're punch drunk. They hit their head a little bit, got a little concussion or whatever, like. And they continue that cycle of repressing and denying why they're really in there training. So whether you're a professional fighter trying to be an MMA world champion like Derrick was, or whether you just train jiu-jitsu, martial arts for recreation, I think it's really, really important to learn to understand your why that you train and to make sure that you're not, as Hickson, or I'm not sure if it's Hickson, but as I heard from the Gracie community, don't roll angry, bro. Like, you can't don't roll angry. You don't want to hurt your training partners. And I've been in negative gyms and I've dealt with a lot of pain getting put on me and putting pain on other people. And the one thing that's helped me really change it is just understand this. If you injure your training partner, let's just imagine this. We're all so lucky to have so many training partners in these big gyms now, but back in the day it wasn't the case. But let's just imagine you only have one training partner. You only have one training partner, and if you hurt your training partner, you have to wait, 3 to 6 weeks or maybe more until they get healthy again and can train with you again. Don't just think like, oh, yep, well, they get hurt, find somebody else, whatever, right? Oh, they weren't tough enough, haha, sucks for them, like type of a situation. So just think about it like that. Every person's important. Everybody's valuable. It's important to have people that are equal at your level. It's important to have people that are better than you. And it's important to have people that are not as good as you. So that way you can train and have all different aspects, right? People that are not as good as you can maybe trick them and do traps and, like it's almost like live drilling, but because they're not as good as you. But you don't have to like tone it down and be easy on them. But maybe you just challenge yourself to grow and, use like misdirection with your technique, or you don't go for the first submission, you figure out how you connect another one, or do what I like to do. I like to call catch and release. If I'm training with somebody who's not as good, instead of just letting them get in dominant positions, because it's hard to get out of dominant positions sometimes. Like my neck hurts, I don't want to do it. So sometimes I'll just transition. I'll let them work on escaping or transitioning out of submissions, and I'll catch and release where I won't actually finish a submission, but I'll just catch a submission and then let them work out of it. I'll catch another submission, let them work out of it, and when it comes to martial arts, it's what's called catch wrestling. You're catching positions, you're catching the submission. You don't have to actually crank on it and finish it all the time. People get so focused on the finishing of the submissions and don't understand that each submission is a position within itself.
That's the ego.
Yeah.
That's the ego.
Yeah. It's so hard to get tapped.
You just want to win.
For sure. I just want to tap them out. I just want to tap them out. I just want to tap them out. Just want to win. Just want to win. Which sometimes can be good. But it sometimes can be bad. Because remember, if you're one winner, that means there's people below you. So it's not always fun to have people below you unless you're ready to lead. So if you're ready to be the champion and want to win against everybody, make sure it's from a place of love and you're ready to lead everybody that's below you, and not from a place of fear and anger, of frustration, of just wanting to dominate everybody so you feel safe. I just want to be on top so I feel safe, right? Well, then what about everyone else down you? Now they don't feel safe. You gotta help them feel safe too, I think that's like what we were talking about before we got recording here, that, people want the methods more than they want the work. And they want the methods. So now you went on your spiritual journey, or you got away from fighting because you realized that you didn't have that fire anymore.
That burnt the candle, just burnt. It's almost like Forrest Gump, where he just kept running and then
all of a sudden just stopped.
Turned around, was like
content.
It's the end of the road, And I think, and then too, also like life situations. During that time, I broke up with the mother of my children, and then I think winning. I think my goal to be a MMA world champion was my goal, and I think I wasn't specific with the goal. Where it was like, I want to be a UFC MMA champion. I was just like, I just want to be an MMA champion, and because I think before it became a thing, like it was just a personal challenge for myself of, one, can I actually commit to this journey, and shit, can I actually do it? you know. And then I think becoming a champion, as I retired, like the championship or having that belt, all it showed to me was that I could be dedicated and I could be disciplined in something, and that was it.
That to me is the most valuable lesson that martial arts and sports has taught me, and that's what I was really trying to teach Derrick, to be honest. And I'm glad he learned that on his own. It's the lesson of commitment that unfortunately we don't get taught in this modern world of divorce and divide and, you know, constant sort of death and rebirth or whatever, right? It's just people just constantly joining new cultures and new communities and just escaping, you know, constantly denying or repressing what they really want. And I think that, yeah, when you commit to something long term and you see what you've learned along that long journey, that those are the real lessons that you get, is the things that you learned along the journey. You know, like for me, the ABCs of learning with Derrick, you know, dream is free, hustle separately. Like it's these deeper lessons, like you said, when you learn that you can commit to something, that anything's possible, whether it's MMA World Championship, whether it's, you know, becoming a successful father, successful fighter, successful coach, whatever it may be. So you decided to get away from fighting MMA. Your fire burned out. You went on your own little spiritual journey, realizing now that the religions don't necessarily teach you how to think for yourself. But they, you know, at the same time, they do give you some structure on how to think, right?
They teaches you how. It definitely taught me how to love.
There you go. That's good. I'm glad I taught you that. That's what I was trying to teach you too. Love is the most powerful healing force on the planet. When I was fighting for the love of it, nobody could really beat me. And at some point, I started fighting for the money of it, and that's when I think I was just kind of selling my soul, and it just didn't feel good. The fire burned out for me. It wasn't necessarily anger fire, but it was love fire. And, you know, for me, at one point, I'm just like, why? I'm getting punched and kicked in the face. I'm making money, but I don't have the people around me that I love. The people that I'm training with don't really love me. We're not staying together. Like, what's the point? Like, if I'm not doing it for the love of it, like, fuck it. And, you know, helping Derrick, that's what, you know, for me was kind of feeling like I was doing it for the love of it again. Like, well, if I need to push this kid to take him to the next level, like, fuck it. I'll push him to punch me in the face, because apparently he's got me on some fucking pedestal, and he can't hold me or anybody on a pedestal, because that's gonna get his ass whooped if he ever fights somebody who he looks at as a hero, or like when I fought Sean Shirk. You can't put these motherfuckers on a pedestal. And it's something I learned through wrestling, from my experience with my wrestling coach, where he said, don't wrestle their name, wrestle their body. And fighting is even more special for me because of that, because, you know, there's punching, there's kicking, there's more than just grappling. So yeah, who gives a fuck about who their name is? At the end of the day, it's the methods, right? And I was trying to teach you certain methods I learned from people like Dimitri. And, you know, one is commitment on your punch, right? Not just throwing it angrily, but full commitment and pinpoint accuracy, knowing exactly where you want to put that punch or that kick, right? Yeah. Just like not knowing exactly where you want to take your championship. I remember originally you told me you wanted to be in the UFC. And so I told you the way to get in the UFC is to collect world titles, collect belts, right? So in my mind, we got one out of the way, put that in the closet, let's get another one. And, you know, you were satisfied with one, and that, you know, life happened the way it did. Yeah. Everything happens the way it's supposed to, what I'm learning. Everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to for us to learn the lessons we're supposed to learn. The hard part, sit back, enjoy the fucking ride, find the love in it, find the beauty in it, find the lessons in it. Because if not, you get focused on the pain, the anger, and all the other stuff, which can help a little bit if we're using it to change in a positive direction. And it sounds like you're in a positive direction now. You're coaching. The one thing that I didn't share that I guess was motivating for me, that maybe I never told you, and I think I did tell you, but Derrick, he didn't say this, but when he first came to the gym and met me and was talking about fighting all this stuff, and he's a father of his kids and all these goals and dreams, he was working the graveyard shift. And like, for me as a martial artist, to hear that he was a black belt, working a graveyard shift, getting paid to like clean.
Oh man.
Like that like hurt my soul. Damn. I was just like, no, this young man is meant for more. I'm like, no. Like I respect him. Like I respect him so much. Like It's almost like my dad living in the hole. It's almost like my mom, you know, going on the journeys that she had to go through and going through to college and taking us around and getting her life back together. It was like, I respect his commitment and like the dedication to his goals and his family, so that way he could like be there during the day to take his kids to school and do all the things he did. But it was almost like he was a zombie, you know. I'm like, yeah, I was like, he didn't maybe see it. I didn't even need to tell him about it. Or maybe I did. I can't remember. But I just know it hit me really hard. I'm just like, no, this young man, I'm gonna mold him into something so much fucking more than that, and he's gonna help other people. And like, I'm not gonna tell. Maybe that was my soul secret that I never told you about. I'm just like, no, not gonna happen. Not on my watch. And so it's awesome and feels really good and rewarding to see you being a coach now and helping other people and, you know, making the world a better place through other things. Now, not to say that cleaning hotels is not a respectable job. I think every job, honestly, is 100% deserves respect.
Definitely.
I come from a blue collar way of life. I first started my blue collar career being the assistant to the janitor on Mare Island when I was younger, like 14, 15. You know, I was just sweeping up rocks and cleaning up chemicals and, you know, doing whatever. But I believe that, you know, if we desire more in our life, we can use any career, any job, any martial art as a stepping stone to do more. I believe that we're all on a holistic journey. We're all on the MMA journey. We're all at church, like I was saying. And that, you know, wherever we're at in life is just fine. Again, learn the lesson you're supposed to learn there. You want to move and grow and go past that? Trust me, it's possible. It's capable. You know, you got to find a group, maybe a community, maybe a church, maybe a martial arts gym. Maybe reach out to me. Maybe reach out to Derrick. Whatever you got to do to change you know, your way of thinking. Create that new behavior that you want to focus on changing from the awareness, and that can create the ABCs of change for yourself, anybody. But at the same time, if you're happy, satisfied with cleaning and working the graveyard shifts, you are my fucking hero, and I mean that 100%. There are days in my life where I actually really wish that I could be happy and be satisfied with being simple, but for whatever reason, it's just not in me. And so yeah, I actually commend and I take my hat off to those people that have set their life to just doing the simple, you know, not easy task, the simple monotonous task like we talked about before.
It's just the same thing.
The same like cleaning, you know, and that's love. That is a deep relationship with love, you know. Love is maintenance. Love is cleaning up relationships, cleaning up fucking toilets, cleaning up whatever, right? So you can learn to love through cleaning up toilets. You can learn to love through religion. You can learn to love through martial arts. In my opinion, anything can be used that we commit to. But that's the one thing that really it takes is commitment. And I think a lot of people lack that. So how did you end up getting back into MMA, and now it seems like you're committed now to teaching full-time at Omni Movement, if I'm correct?
Yeah. So crazy. So I ended up, after MMA, went on a spiritual journey. Then I ended up working at a gym as a personal trainer. And like,
how was being a personal trainer?
At first, it was almost like, all right, I'll give this shit a shot. I'll give it a shot. Like, they say I'll be good, but like, I'll just give it a shot. Like,
they say I'll be good.
Like, I don't know what I'm like. Do I really want to do this? And I think I was so worried about what the world or what social media would think about me, like if I retired and all this stuff. So then I was battling that.
Worried about your image, your ego.
There you go.
Let me check my last post. Oh shit, I was a fighter. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah. And then it got to the point where, like, crazy as hell, where like I'm training a client and I see their limiting mindset and I see how they don't have confidence, and then I see myself, I'm speaking life to them, but then I'm using your coaching philosophies on them, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like
but are they really mine?
Like,
or were they yours? Were they exactly what I was doing, or did you tweak them a little bit?
I tweaked them and personalized them, but then like,
so are they really mine?
They're hours.
Well, listen. What I'm trying to do without. I'm just gonna tell you what I'm trying to do. Fuck it. I'm trying to get you to take me off that pedestal.
Oh.
Okay. Because again, it's the methods that are more important. Cool that I shared them with you.
Yeah.
Right. But continue on. Let's like, don't just say my methods, right? It isn't Tyson. I mean, sure, we can get into Tyson Lee Griffin's coaching methods, right? But what are the methods that you're talking about? Like, let's get a little bit more fine tuned with it. Yeah.
I think one was like.
Yeah, just stick with one.
One was like, get out of your head, get into your body.
Okay, perfect.
And I remember that was like one of our coaching cues. That was one of the ABCs to help me not fucking get stuck and just take punches, was like to move around. And I remember I'd see like clients just so frustrated, like, dude, what the fuck? Just get out of your goddamn head, just move your body. Just do this fucking squat. Yeah. And then it performed it, I was like, oh damn, this shit works. Like,
I think that's the integrate. So that it forces people to integrate. When we get too stuck in our mind, it can shut us down. And from my experiences and my education, and if we're going to break it down from a clinical standpoint, when it comes to trauma, dealing with, managing, and working through trauma, a lot of times people can dissociate, right? And this is what's going on in the world right now. It's, I think, the biggest negative side I see with social media. Dissociation or detaching from the situation and getting too stuck in our head. The classic sort of dissociation is like looking at things like kind of like a movie, right? Getting stuck in your head and focused on thinking,
mm-hmm.
And what you see and what you think, or what what somebody else might think, or the social media or whatever, right? And why this is so important is because it integrates us back to the head, heart, gut connection and integration,
mm-hmm.
versus living through our head and our intellect and our mind and our ego, right? So there's a quote from Bruce Lee in this book over here, Tao of Jeet Kune Do. I believe the quote is, consciousness of the self is the hindrance of all perfect movement. Basically, the ego. You start overthinking it, and then of course you just shut down and don't do anything. But the way that the human learns is through like three things: auditory, kinesthetic, or visual.
Yeah. Auditory,
hearing it, we tell them. Visual, you demonstrate it, you do it. Kinesthetic, they do it, they feel it. And so you've got to kind of, everyone's heavily like more influenced by one or the other, but I think we always need all three for it to truly integrate. So that's where at some point it's like, do it, bro. You got all the information. I've told you, I've showed you enough. Do it. Just do it. Stop thinking. Just do it. Just do it. Right. And so that's where it's important again to just get back into the body, because like we talked about before, body language is the most powerful form of communication, not only with each other but with yourself. You do it. You feel it. Oh, you don't like it? Use your intellect in your head. Correct it. Go back and do it. Oh, feel it. And so like another coaching cue I'll use along that lines is I'll like breathe and feel, breathe and correct. Breathe and feel, breathe and correct. So that way you're just breathing into the feelings of, it's not right. Okay, now correct it. Versus you breathe and I feel, it's not right. And then you just focus on doing it wrong and focus on what I'm doing wrong, and then you don't do it again. Breathe and feel it. Correct it. Do it again. And that for me is super important with martial arts, because in the moment with a fight, you can't stop and overanalyze it. Like, bro, you made a mistake. He punched you. Cool. Correct that shit. Go. Like, you know what I mean? Like short-term memory. Yeah. So when you're go ahead.
So then I'm applying everything I learned from my MMA career, and now I'm coaching and training these people, and I think that's when I felt like joy, and I felt some purpose, and I was just like, I think this is that next path I need to take in this life. It's like, all right, I'm still a martial artist. I was a fighter in my past life, and now I'm stepping into a new life. Now I'm becoming a coach, or a trainer.
Yeah. coach, trainer, leader. I can go on a fucking list of words and names that are all similar nowadays, you know?
And then COVID hit. So I'm working at Equinox for like 3+ years. I'm moving up in the ranks. And then COVID hits, and then I got furloughed.
The old furlough. Yeah, I was at UFC gym. I got furloughed too. And just so you know, furloughed means fired. Yeah. With the option to renew.
Yeah, so I got...
Not really, don't quote me on that.
So I got furloughed, and then, like, I just had my backyard and 4 kettlebells. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to freaking set up shop and just start training people. Then, like, my clients kept coming to me, kept training more people. And then one of our friends, Ezel, came by, wanted to train and work out. Next thing you know, like, he wants to learn whatever. He wants to lift weights. He wants to do striking. He wants to learn MMA. Next thing you know, I'm like having MMA classes, a team training in my backyard in Oakland freaking 3 times a week with him and some other guys. And like, then it's like, damn, what the fuck? How'd
I get here?
When I tried to step back, it pulled me right back in. And like, then I just like, I took it on. Where it's just like, all right, full on. Like, you almost have to like embrace it, or like, man, if this is what the world needs, then like, I'm the guy. I'm the coach.
What I've learned from my studies around martial arts is that martial arts were created to protect community. And I think that's,
that's deep.
Leaving the Bay Area and then coming back, I didn't realize it. But that's, to me, it's more important to teach people martial arts in the Bay Area to protect the communities. Now, if I'm going to reflect all the like experiences I've had, like I said, everything happens the way it's supposed to for us to learn those lessons we need to learn. And I remember when I was in concealed weapon class in Las Vegas, that the instructor there, he mentioned the phrase that an armed society is a polite society. And it made me think about like the old school Western days, where like everyone's walking around with a big old 6-shooter on their hip, or like in Texas where everyone's got open carry. I bet it was real peaceful and real respectful, right?
Get that ass shot.
Yeah, right? It's like in Oakland, right? It's real respectful. Hey, what's up, bud? What's up, man? Everyone knows how to treat each other, right? But again, like, you think of like the old school days in the saloon or the bar, right? Everybody's got 6-shooters on their hip. Everybody's going to be a little bit more respectful. You see a lady at the bar that's nice and you want to talk to her, you're going to be polite. Hey, man, you accompanied by anybody right now, man? Like, no, you're not? Okay, well, there's a possibility I might buy you a drink, Like, you're not going to just go up and smack somebody on the ass because next thing you know, you got to shoot out at high noon. Like, all right, motherfucker, I'll see you out there tomorrow. Like, you can enjoy your drinks tonight, but you're going to be out there tomorrow. Otherwise, you're going to get shamed in front of the whole town. You're going to have to ride out and leave town. You don't get to stick around. Now we got these big cities. Everybody just acts a fool. But that whole saying of armed society is a polite society made me start really thinking. And I remember my friend from New York. New York doesn't have as many guns as us out here in the West Coast. But in New York, he's like, yeah, man, all my gangster homies, they don't be fighting in the streets no more. He's like, yeah, man, I don't be fucking fighting with these white boys. White boys be knowing jiu-jitsu and shit. You never know who's gonna hem your ass up and choke you out, And it started making me think, it's true. I believe that everybody needs to train MMA. That's why I think we're all on the MMA journey. We're all on a holistic journey. I think we're all going to have to get connected to nature whether we like it or not. And we're all at church whether we like it or not. And I think that the MMA journey, again, we're all on that path because we need to learn how to have hand-to-hand, combat skills. And we also need to learn how to have body language, right? And they go hand in hand. Without those skills, you're not going to have confident body language. You're going to have insecure body language. You're going to have that, maybe
like a victim, huh? Look like a victim.
You could look like a victim. That's one sort of insecure body language. But another insecure body language is looking tough, yelling and screaming, right? But again, real recognize real, as they say, here in the Bay and other places. And it's something I've learned. I know what I was capable of, I know what I was doing when I was out there fighting. I was literally trying to murder people with my bare hands, knowing that the referee would stop us. And, you know, to my credit, I didn't want to just, like, bloody them up. I actually didn't elbow people on purpose because I didn't want to cut people open. I had been cut myself. That's not fun, man. I can put you to sleep without making you ugly, all right? I can touch you on your chin, and I can wrap my arms around your neck and put you to sleep without leaving a mark. And that, to me, was the real art of fighting. Not just, I'll smash you in the head and elbow you and, like, do all this stuff. Like, no. It was understanding the nervous system and the human being and how to shut them down, shut them off, break them down. You want to get angry in a fight? I'm going to promise you it's going to be a long fucking night, and you're going to find out a lot about yourself.
Damn.
And that, to me, is the look that you need to have, or the feeling that people need to feel if they're going to respect you, like, when it comes down to it, you know? And John Hackleman, Chuck Liddell's old trainer, he called it the look, right? I remember I talked to him about this one time. He goes, "Have you watched my video?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "My video, the look." I'm like, what are you talking about? "Yeah, I got this video." And yeah, it's just a look. It's that body language, right? When you look at someone's soul, like, "Oh, you've been to dark places before. I can tell." I look at JT, I can tell. Derrick, I can tell. He's been in dark places. He's actually doing a better job right now of looking at me in the eyes. But back in the day, Derrick used to never be able to look me in the eyes for very long. He'd always look away. You remember that?
Yeah.
I used to always fuck with him, like, "Derrick, why are you looking away, bro? Why are you getting scared?" Now, to his credit, that's actually normal. It's not actually natural to be constantly staring at each other and just, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a little bit of what do they call that? Sociopath?
Is it?
It can be, right? If you're not knowing why you're doing it. If I'm just staring at something, like, you think
like a blank stare.
Yeah, well, you just, a blank stare, the unhealthy stare, where someone just, they're so obsessed with that thing, they're just gonna stare at it, you know, until, you know, it pays attention to them or whatever, right? But again, I learned about this phrase called sacred listening, and that's where I feel like I do it now. And I learned it from my brother, because my brother used to fight me growing up. At some point, I'm looking at his eyes, he's just raging at me, you know. I'm just like, this dude's angry as fuck. But I'm like, I can tell he's, like, looking through me, you know what I mean? Like, he's not looking at me. He's like, something else is going on. I'm like, oh, he's angry, but he's not angry at me. And that's kind of like the same thing that I can see in other people. I'm like, oh, they're angry as fuck, but they're not really angry at me, right? Now, sometimes I can say yes, and I can step in and be that person that they project the anger onto, you know, if I choose to, right? Like with you, if I choose to be in there and help you train, I can choose to do that. Mm-hmm. But people have to be careful falling into saying yes, you know, unconsciously, and falling into those patterns of becoming other people's training partners. And that's what I learned throughout my careers. But so to circle back, I'm rambling now, but to circle back to, you started getting your backyard training session going once COVID went down. Mm-hmm. You had your group that you were leading. Mm-hmm. You again, for me, these martial arts to help protect the community. Mm-hmm. So now you've got your group. You're helping sort of lead them and help, you know,
teaching them martial arts. Trying to teach
use MMA as a form of therapy, right?
Yeah,
or whatever you want to call it.
Definitely, well, definitely.
A lifestyle, if you will. It's healthy, right? Training martial arts in a healthy way is what you need to be doing, and then you end up fighting less because you feel more confident, you feel more comfortable, you know what you're capable of. You don't have to go out and test yourself in the streets or whatever, you know. And then, so how did you go from that to end up coaching at Omni Movement?
I ended up moving from Oakland to Hercules, and then I started. What's up?
I was gonna say, how did that come about?
Me and my brother ended up. So my lease was almost up in Oakland, and then my plan was like, to leave there and then like look for my own spot, and
did you want to get away from Oakland intentionally, or?
No, okay. Not intentional. Like, I would still live in Oakland, but fucking houses are hell expensive.
Right.
And then, so yeah, moved to Hercules, and I just like set up shop. I was setting up shop in my garage. Had a gym, or had like a training gym and stuff out of there. And then I just felt the need, like I need to work. Like, I want to work out. I want to punch something. I want to train martial arts for myself and not have to teach others and be selfish a little bit. So I checked out Omni. I did a boxing class there with no intentions of like
That's how it always works.
being a jiu-jitsu coach or anything. Just like, oh, I'm just gonna check it out, do the class. It was cool. And then a couple weeks later, a month later, there was a race in Hercules, a local event. And I signed up for a 6K. And as I'm running, I see an old jiu-jitsu training partner of mine. So I like sprint all the way up to him to try to catch up to him. And I'm talking to him. And then one of the fighters from Omni, I guess he recognizes me. He's like, hey, you used to fight. And then like we start small talking. I was like, yeah, I fight. He was like, what do you do right now? I was like, man, I'm just nothing much, just training in my garage. I train jiu-jitsu to my friends at home and stuff. And he was like, what belt are you? I'm like, I'm a black belt. And then it opens up. He was like, dude, we're looking for a jiu-jitsu coach. Would you be interested? No, then that's when I was like, all right, let's set up a time we could talk. And then
Nice.
It was there. Moved me out my garage, which was a good thing because we're going through like legal lawsuits with my HOA, which is fucking
Good old HOA BS.
BS.
Make sure you if you ever buy a house,
Don't
you
get-
look very carefully into your HOA policies before you move in and make sure you're comfortable with them before you move in.
Yeah.
Because although it can be nice to have an HOA, it can also be a polarizing experience, and there can be some other sides to it. So yeah, it has a gift and a curse. I remember having an HOA when I lived in Vegas, and there's some benefits and some downsides. So it's not all bad, but it's not all good either.
I think it's just the control. I don't like to feel controlled.
Speaking of feeling controlled, we only got a couple minutes left, but I know you got to go. But we'll just get into a little bit of, speaking of being controlled. Derrick was asking early on, before we started recording, about what he thinks everything going on in the world right now. And what I think really is going on in the world right now is simple. It's control. It's an unhealthy relationship with control and with power. And if you listen to my podcast around unhealthy relationships, you can see or hear about what I mean by that and how to break free from it potentially. But I think it really comes down to that. It's an unhealthy relationship with control or power. And unfortunately, there's so many layers of smoke and mirrors in America, and especially in California. It's all these different corporate layers of LLCs on top of LLCs on top of LLCs. And when you get into business and you see some of that stuff, you can kind of see how it works. Now, the sad thing is a lot of it can be done intentionally for good reasons, right? HOAs and all that stuff is done to help things be nice and organized, keep things in place. But then it can be bad because then it doesn't allow people to be completely free and to be themselves. You have to literally be part of this community, or you have to live within these certain guidelines. And I think that's just human nature. Part of human nature is to be free. Like, that's part of our spirit, our soul, our gut. Our gut does not like not being free. Our head convinces us we're free. Oh yeah, I'm free. I can do this. I can do that. Right? I'm free because of this. I'm free because of that. So yeah, HOAs unfortunately aren't so great. But what I really see going on in the world, like I said, is this unhealthy relationship with control or power. And when the pandemic first started, I was at UFC gym.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, I think everything happens for a reason. I'm kind of glad I'm not at UFC gym anymore. There was a lot of control and power there. You had to take certain certifications. I didn't have to yet, but I believe they were going to eventually encourage me to promote certain supplements. And so I could coach the way I wanted to coach, but I'm sure later there might be things that I didn't necessarily agree with. So getting furloughed from there, I think allowed me to be freer and do my own thing. Now, that's what I really like about the holistic studies that I do and with the Czech Institute, is because although it's a continuing education thing and I do got to keep studying with them, I can do almost anything I want. You know, when it comes to the holistic stuff, as long as it's anything natural, that falls in with holistic. I can work within a multiple disciplinary program and like work with different coaches or therapists or doctors, and not, you know, claim that I'm some one special thing, you know. Now, my biggest concern with all this stuff going on with like the COVID and the control and the power is the question is why? And what's the bigger thing going on, you know? Because it's all these smoke and mirrors. And if they're doing things to try to create these mandates that eventually will get voted into law, then that's when they can't be reversed. And that's when our freedoms literally get taken away. Same thing with the HOA. When the HOA rules become law with the HOA, now you can't do that. I'm sorry, sir, you're within this HOA. This is the HOA, which is like the constitution of this little place, right? And so we have this big grand constitution that governs our supposed to sort of umbrella our government, but it's like they've put all these other rules, like they actually try to like put them on top of the bigger umbrella somehow, to like make them more important when they're actually supposed to be underneath, and they're supposed to fall in line with the Constitution. Some of these rules, laws, and mandates actually break the Constitution, but because you've signed it and you've agreed to it within an HOA, within a contract for a company, within whatever, you've signed away those constitutional rights and freedoms. And that's where it's dangerous if we somehow end up voting on any of these mandates or laws, right? We should always vote and fight for freedom. Freedom to be an idiot. Freedom to be a moron. Freedom to be intelligent. Freedom to be amazing. Freedom to be a leader. Freedom to be a follower. Freedom to be a victim. Freedom to be whatever you want to be, so we can continue to learn the lessons that we need to learn. When people start trying to control things and tell us that they know what's right and they know what to do, just do your freaking job and listen, don't question things, well, sounds a little bit like religion, where we don't get taught how to think for ourselves. We just get taught how to be and what to do. And then we don't get to create our own methods. We don't know who we are as an individual human being, a human soul, a human whatever. Then we just become a worker for the machines, for the companies, for the corporations, for the whatever. For social media, you know? And so, knowing everything I know for centuries, maybe not centuries, but I'm sure ever since they've been taking the data, the common flu, the common cold, these simple bacterias, viruses, or infections is what takes people out in the long run. You know, once people are older, my grandma, you know, she had Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I'm sorry, not Alzheimer's. She had Parkinson's and early onset dementia and all this other stuff. And eventually in the end, what took her out? Basic cold. Something really simple. But again, it's what's being labeled as or marketed to as comorbidity factors. Obesity, vitamin D deficiency, all these other factors, respiratory conditions, cardiac conditions, all these other factors are now making the human system so sensitive and so weak and so susceptible to being taken out by the common cold, the common flu, the common flu, the common virus, right? And so what I see in the world, and especially in America, is we have so many people, the population is so massive, and the polarization is so extreme on the ends. We have, you know, maybe a bunch of holistic people over here just living in line with nature, and we have all these scientific people over here just living in line with science and trying to control everything and be intellectual. All these people over here on the other side just trying to listen to their gut, their intuition, and pray and meditate and be in accordance with nature. Then you have all these people in the middle. The masses are actually in the middle. The masses are actually in the middle, constantly being influenced, constantly being pulled and pushed. And those are the people that I believe are the majority that need to learn to how to think for themselves, be critical thinkers, find out what they really want to do with their life. And if you don't know, take any path, right? Go sign up at Equinox and become a personal trainer. Fuck it. You know, do it because you're worried about what people think on social media. That's fine. Who cares why you do it? Just fucking do something, right? Get out of your head. Get in your body. That's what you're doing. You're working, right? I'm getting out of my head, getting in my body, just doing something. Doing any job will help you figure it out. And, you know, if it does nothing but help you figure out what you don't want to do in life, then great. Figure out what you don't want to do, don't want to do. Eventually, you're going to have something that feels good, like with Derrick, where when he was coaching those people, it was like, oh, that's that thing. And I felt that same thing when I was coaching Derrick. When Derrick won his belt in San Francisco, I remember I had that same feeling. It's a feeling of fulfillment. It's not gratitude. It's not happy. It's fulfillment, where you literally get filled with energy, where, like, and it comes out of nowhere. To be honest, you're giving energy. You're giving energy. You're giving energy, and somehow this energy just circles back around and whoo, just fills you back up, and you're like, holy fuck, I wasn't looking for that. Woo, and that's the hard part, because you get attached to it. And you think, oh, I want to help everybody now. I want to try to get that feeling. Yeah. Hey, come here, let me help you. Hey, come here, let me help you. You know, you got to be careful. So sit back, keep coaching from a place of love. You know, try to communicate with the people that you're coaching, because everyone needs an individual, holistic approach. Everybody needs certain things at certain times, as I'm sure you're learning through coaching everybody. And trying to figure out, or you know what, this is the hardest thing. Trying to help other people figure out their whys. Right? Yeah. Because when you try to figure out what you know about them, that doesn't help people, you know? And when you try to force what you want to teach them, it doesn't always help. And so I've learned to try to lead and facilitate opportunities for growth and expansions of awareness. And then people, you know, usually they kind of figure it out on their own. And you got to be there to talk and to listen, or more so to listen rather, not to talk. To listen to them talk. Because while people are talking, sometimes they figure it out. Kind of like you did in those moments. Oh, dream is free. Hustle soul separately. So, yeah. With all that said, Derrick, did you figure out anything through your coaching journey as a personal trainer, now back as a sort of mixed martial arts coach? Have you learned anything through your journey of going from selfish fighter to now coaching and training, and also learning that you need that balance of being a little bit selfish and getting to train for yourself with coaching others?
Is there anything that I learned?
Yeah. Like, example for me is what I learned, like I said, from you, and what I thought you learned through the MMA career was, you know, the things about, you know, like what you learned from the MMA career was commitment. You said, when I learned that I commit to something, that, you know, things like that are possible. Are there any, you don't have to have anything, but is there anything that you've taken away, maybe like throughout this block of coaching during COVID? Like for me, my biggest takeaway during this block of coaching with COVID and all this pandemic or whatever you want to call it is learning to coach and love without attachment, without expectation. So is there anything that you've learned?
Yeah, I guess one thing that I learned or observed was that people are trapped in their minds, and people are living a life that they truly don't want to, like, they're not going after what they really want, you know, and I don't know if it's like lack of self-awareness or lack of confidence.
I'd say lack of leadership. They don't know, right? I'm gonna be honest. The same thing happened to me. I dare say I woke up in a cage one day and I realized I was fighting in a cage in front of thousands and thousands of people, and I didn't want to be there. Why the fuck am I here? I feel like I'm fighting my little brother in the living room again. This is the stupidest thing ever. How did I get there? I convinced myself that I wanted to by living in my head, just like Derrick said. It was a long combination of things, because I allowed myself to believe that I couldn't be a professional athlete. I'm just going to be a construction worker and live this boring, depressing life. And then one day, I ended up fighting and training jiu-jitsu and MMA. And somebody pointed out the fact that I was pretty good at it and that I could make money at it. And so in my brain, I went, you know what? Technically, if I make money fighting, that's a professional athlete. All in. Let's go. But you know why I wanted to be a professional athlete growing up? It's because I wanted to be happy and I wanted to be healthy. I wanted people to love me. I wanted people to like me. I wanted people to make fun of me for being fat. I don't make people fun of me for being asthmatic or breathing funny. But you know what happens when you fight? Everybody makes fun of you. Nobody loves you. They all hate you. You're trying to fight everybody. Why would they like you? Right? So yeah, it was just a big wake-up call. You know, you gotta be careful living other people's dreams and living other people's paths.
Yeah,
but at the same time, if you live anything, you know, it'll get you there. You'll figure it out. But listen to your gut, listen to your heart. And for me, I can teach martial arts, I can train martial arts, and I can, you know, spar martial arts as long as I'm doing it in a way that's going to protect my community, protect my family and my friends, and make this world a happier, healthier place. Like, to do it to make money and to be better than somebody and be the top of the world, like, I'm over that. That's just what the world wants you to believe that you need. And I'll never forget being in Las Vegas. I had a 2,500 square foot house. I had $100,000 in my bank. I had a truck. I had a boat. I had multiple girls I was hanging out with and talking to. But you know what I lacked? Commitment. I was so spread out, I wasn't committed. And so I think that's the most powerful thing. When you truly commit. And when I truly committed to MMA, I realized I didn't really want to be there like that. You know, I wanted to be there in a different way. I wanted to maybe be there as a coach. Now I can be there as a coach and be there. But I don't want to be there in those ways. If I'm being 100% honest with myself, that, you know, like there's a fighter inside of us that will never leave. But do I want to, like, do I feel the desire to, like, be the champion, be on top of the world and control things again? Like, no. That just seems weird to me. Yeah. And that's what I see with the world and whoever's and all those people that are trying to control things. You know, they get into that weird state of trying to control things for whatever reasons. Everyone has their motives, and you got to work out your own motives and your own issues with yourself, with a coach, with a therapist, with whatever. And that's where MMA can be a place of therapy. You know, if you don't want to talk to somebody, just go punch and kick and move, and it'll all work itself out. You know, it might take a little longer, like me and Derrick experienced, but you know, I think that's where MMA is a beautiful journey, and MMA can be a thing that helps protect community. Like I said, you know, it should help protect community, bring people together, and not keep creating divide. So it's good talking with you. I think we should wrap it up there. I know you got to go. Hopefully I didn't take too long. Is there anything that you want to share as far as places people can reach out to you or find coaching with you or train with you?
Yeah, you could find me on Instagram, SOTG Lifestyle, and
student of the game. That's what that means.
Student of the game, and I'm coaching. If you want jiu-jitsu lessons at Omni Movement, it's at 678 Alfred Noble in Hercules, California.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Derrick, and hopefully we can do this again.
Hell yeah.
Peace, love, happy healing, y'all. Cool.
Thank you.